Chapter 11, Harry Escape. Mr. Tabby hurried into the lobby with Ben and Pearl at his heels. A cool breeze tickled Ben's face. The factory's front door stood wide open. "Oops," Ben said. "Oops?" Mr. Tabby asked, his eyes flashing. "The bolt was rusty," Ben started to explain. "I tried, but I couldn't." "Do you know what you've done?" A soft growl rose in Mr. Tabby's throat. "You've made it possible for an imaginary creature to enter the known world." "I didn't mean to," Ben said. He slid his hands into his jean pockets. "I tried to bolt it, but it jammed." He looked down at his shoes, hoping to avoid Mr. Tabby's glowing eyes. "What was that on the floor?" He reached down and picked up a tuft of coarse brown fur. "A Sasquatch's fingers are too thick to grip a deadbolt. That is why we put them on the doors." Mr. Tabby stood in the doorway, shaking his head slowly. "No sight of it. This is a dreadful turn of events." "What's a Sasquatch?" Pearl asked. Ignoring the question, Mr. Tabby began to search through a pile of boxes. "It is my responsibility to keep things in order while Dr. Wu is making house calls. She will be very disappointed." "I'm sorry," Ben said. "I tried to bolt it. Really, I did." "What's a Sasquatch?" Pearl asked again. "It's a big hairy ape," Ben said, holding out the tuft of fur. He remembered a TV show about a group of Sasquatch hunters, but he thought the show was pretend. "You mean there's a big ape running around Buttonville?" Pearl asked. "Cool." "A Sasquatch is not a big ape," Mr. Tabby said as he continued his search. "Apes are known world creatures. Sasquatches come from the imaginary world." Ben stuffed the tuft into his pocket. He would be the only kid in his neighborhood who owned a genuine tuft of Sasquatch fur, which was way better than the shark tooth his friend Warren was always bragging about. "Don't some people call it Big Feet?" "Bigfoot," Mr. Tabby corrected. "The Sasquatch is also called Bigfoot." "Does it only have one foot?" Pearl asked. Mr. Tabby moved to a different stack of boxes. "Of course it does not only have one foot, but what a ridiculous question." "Then why do they call it Bigfoot instead of Big Feet?" Mr. Tabby stopped searching and stared at Pearl. His whiskered mustache twitched with annoyance. "You are full of bothersome questions. Don't you children study imaginary creatures in school?" "No, never," Pearl said. "We study real creatures. We dissected sheep eyeballs in biology." "What a shame," Mr. Tabby said. "Your teacher would have served you better with a hydra's eyeball or a minotaur's eyeball. Sheep eyeballs are so ordinary." "And slimy," Pearl said. "Mine slipped out of my fingers and flew across the room and landed in Miss B's hair. I got detention for 3 days because she said I threw it on purpose. But I didn't. It slipped." She smiled mischievously at Ben. "Ah, here it is." Mr. Tabby pulled a cardboard box from the stack and set it on the floor. Pearl and Ben gathered around as he removed the lid and lifted out a small metal box about the size of a loaf of bread. The engraved label read, "Sasquatch Catching Kit." Normally, the doctor would take care of this matter, but as I mentioned earlier, she is on a house call. So, seeing as you are the only one who did not bolt the door, he thrust the kit at Ben. Ben gulped as the box landed in his arms. "You want me to catch the Sasquatch?" "Indeed." "For the millionth time, will someone please tell me what a Sasquatch is?" Pearl demanded with a stomp of her foot. Mr. Tabby cleared his throat. "Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot, is a large, hairy, humanoid-like creature that inhabits the forests of the imaginary world. It has a sloping brow and a small brain. It can stand 6 to 10 feet tall and weigh in excess of 500 pounds. He pulled out his creature calculator. "This individual, however, stands at 7 feet 4 inches and weighs 410 pounds. Dr. Wu is treating it for foot fungus." "Gross," Pearl said. Then Ben looked out the front door. "People will start freaking out if they see it." "Yes, they will," Mr. Tabby said. "People always freak out when an imaginary world creature steps into the known world." "Maybe we should call the police," Ben suggested. "My Aunt Millie is a police officer," Pearl said. "I could call her." "That's a terrible idea," Mr. Tabby said. "Such a call would most certainly lead to tragedy. The authorities would take the Sasquatch away and lock it up, and then the Sasquatch would never get back to its home in the imaginary world. That's where its family is waiting. You must keep this a secret. We must work together to protect the Sasquatch." Ben and Pearl nodded. Do not worry. The Sasquatch is gentle by nature. It will not hurt anyone, not on purpose, and it will not go far. Sasquatches are lazy. They don't like to travel. They prefer the forest and will almost always choose it as a place to hide and sleep. I suggest you begin your search there. Mr. Tabby returned the cardboard box to the pile, then smoothed out his vest. I have much work to do while Dr. Wu is away. I will rely on you two to bring the Sasquatch back to the hospital safe and sound. He held out a small brass key. This will open the Sasquatch catching kit. Pearl's hand shot out faster than Ben's and grabbed the key. And with that, Mr. Tabby turned on his polished heels, opened the employees-only door. The door closed behind him, leaving Ben and Pearl alone in the lobby. This has got to be the weirdest day ever, Pearl said. The weirdest, Ben agreed. Well, we'd better hurry.